Hey, welcome in to Hold My Banner. If you love this show, make sure you check out Foxborough Rush, available on Nesson as well. George Balecki and I get you ready for this weekend's NFL Combine. Come on, roll with us. Foxborough Rush is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever else you get your podcast. All right, here we go. Hold my banner. I say, hold my banner. Bro, you're supposed to do the clap. Whatever. Travis Thomas here with the walking, talking, triple-double. Ante Campbell, who you could tell played in the games because he didn't know the crowd response. I know the crowd responses. You were too busy in the game.
Yeah. I'm not worried about that. We got a lot to talk about today, so I want to get straight up into it. I'm locked in like it's game time, Travis.
Facts. Well, we do have Hoops royalty on the program today. Fran Fraschilla pulls up on us, and it was legendary, Ante. So we'll get to that later on. But first, let's start with tonight. Celtics, Cavaliers, Eastern Conference supremacy. Let's get into it, baby. I need score predictions. Who's going to ball out? Who's going to win? What do we got?
Look, what I expect is a Tatum show out. I know every time I see this matchup, I expect a Tatum show out, but these are the games that push you for MVP.
Yeah.
You're facing off against the number one team in the Eastern Conference, a team that you've beaten twice at this point now. Can you go and show your dominance again against one of the top teams in the East? Let's see it, Jason Tatum. That's what I expect.
I mean, the game is at home.
Yes.
You both have been cooking lately. We can't take anything away from the Cavs. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this is an MVP-like game, and we've seen Tatum give MVP-like performances.
Yes.
It still isn't moving the needle in terms of the MVP. We know how that's going to go. But you and I have been saying all season he deserves more respect on his name. I think games like this continue to make a case for him, albeit probably a losing case, but it doesn't change anything from Jason Tatum's standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, sure, we may look at this as, you know, he can have an MVP-like game and he's still not going to get the MVP. But
yes, of course.
He said out of his own mouth, Ante, I mean, what more do you want from me? I'm giving you a game. I'm the best player on the championship team. He's looking past MVP. He's like, I'm the face of the league. He's not even thinking of MVP.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think Tatum shows out tonight. I think we're going to get a great game. I always say this. I'm curious to get your score prediction because I'm always predicting these dramatic, last-second heroics. You know, Tatum, buzzer beater. But it never quite ends up like that in these big games. It feels like the Celtics, whether it is a blowout or convincingly, they kind of get it done. But I'm going back to the well here, Tay. I think we're going to get a tight game tonight. I'll give you my score in a minute. But both of us are in lockstep for Tatum having a huge night. Are we in lockstep for a Celtics win? And do you think it'll be close? Because you do a great job at predicting these big games, and you've predicted a lot of blowouts in the past correctly.
Yes, I'm with you. I do think a Celtics win here.
Okay.
This is the last time that we're going to get this game before the playoffs, hopefully, right?
Yes.
We're all hoping for that matchup in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Cavs are on an 8-game win streak.
They are.
Which I feel like, you know, the last time that they lost was to the Celtics.
Yeah.
So they need to lose again.
By the way, I'm looking at that score right now, 112-105 in that. Tatum had 35 in that game.
In Cleveland, you know.
Or 22 in that game.
Cleveland has won one of these matchups, but I think this is one of those games. Hopefully Jaylen Brown's playing. Hopefully Darius Garland's playing, who have both missed some time the last game. But I'm ready to see, is this team going to lock in and set the tone for the playoffs that they're better than Cleveland? Forget what the records say. Throw the records out. If we're 3-1 going into the playoffs against Cleveland, that shows that the Celtics are better. So I think, once again, yes, Celtics are going to come out knowing that, hey, this is a statement game to let Cleveland know, forget records, we are the champs, and we will be the champs getting banner 19 this season.
I agree. I'm going to go similar to last game, defensive. Last game felt very defensive, which is what a series would likely be with these two anyways. I'll go Celtics 110, Cavs 106.
Celtics 110, Cavs 106.
Tatum's a guy.
Okay. I'm going to go
Tatum's
Celtics 115,
okay.
Cavs 113.
Oh.
Now, I do have to say, I believe in this Cavaliers team a lot more since the deadline. DeAndre Hunter has been a great add. This will be one of those rock fights like you were talking about, but I'm expecting a little bit of the theatrics in this one, finally. It's been some games where at the end you already know who's going to win. I don't think we're getting that. I think we're going in the last 30 seconds saying who's winning this game. Okay,
well, say it with your chest then. 115, 113. Is somebody hitting a dagger? Is somebody hitting a bang? Like, what do we got going here? Is it free throws? Is it anticlimactic? Like, what do we got?
Derek White.
Oh, little game winner, little floater in the lane. Derek White wins it. Celtics win. Celtics win.
It's time. Little Derek White bucket.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Well, you heard it here first, folks. In fact, we do pretty good at the show, predictions, and a lot of times Ante and I go back and forth. No, you're right. No, I'm right. No, you're right. Well, on our last Hold My Banner, we had difference of opinions in terms of some of these predictions. Before we discuss this, Ante, further, let's flashback and take a look.
Kyrie is going to go out there and do his thing. You think he doesn't want to go out and hoop against his two former teammates? Kyrie's petty. Of course he's going to try to hoop against his former teammates. He's going to do what he can. This game is going to the Mavericks.
Our esteemed director, Jay, if you wouldn't mind, just time code the part of this episode so that Ante can clip it off, because he has now lost his mind twice on the show. He has taken the Pistons to beat the C's tonight, and he's taken the Mavericks over the Lakers, in which by the next time we see you, this game would have already been played anyway. I am taking the Celtics and the Lakers in both games because I'm a genius. I'm so humble too. Okay, so as we all know, Luka triple-double.
Yep.
I got that one right. By the way, it should be noted, Luka has dropped a triple-double now on all 30 teams. Only LeBron and Russell Westbrook are in that company. That's rarefied air. They're the only two players other than Luka, so now 3 who have done that.
Yes.
And then we know Ante got it right. Pistons, I don't know if he saw a blowout.
No,
they
I didn't say blowout.
Destroyed the Celtics.
I didn't say blowout.
You got the Pistons right. So we were 1-1.
We were
like
1-1.
We were 1-1.
I do want to say, to be fair to me, with the Lakers and Luka and the Mavericks situation, I did say Kyrie was going to hoop.
You did.
He did hoop. I did say Max Christie was going to give you good minutes. He did give you good minutes. I said PJ Washington was going to do some good things.
Check.
I meant defensively, but I didn't say that. Offensively, he was terrible. But, I did have there were some times there where the Mavericks could have won that game and they just didn't close it out. Shout out to Luka. He did have a poor shooting night.
Yeah.
The Mavericks did make it tough on him. I did say that was going to happen. They had the defenders to make it tough on Luka. They did make it tough on him. So, it is what it is. But, I was wrong. I was wrong. But 1-1. We split.
But to be fair, I'll add this too. All the Mavericks' big men were hurt. So what the hell did you think was going to happen there? Look, I'll go to the other game where you were completely right. This Pistons team, man. Now, of course, in a 7-game series, are you worried about the Pistons? No. But I really like what they're doing. And for the sake of them, I don't want them matched up against the Celtics in the first round. I don't. I hope they get someone else. Like, I think they're going to be I don't think they'd be a tough out for the Celtics.
No. Yeah.
But I want like a Pistons-Knicks first-round series.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like a Bucks-Pistons or a Cavs-Pistons. I want one of these other Eastern Conference contenders to get the Pistons
Quote,
in the
unquote.
first round. Welcome to the playoffs. This team's going to push you to the limit. I was impressed. I know Jaylen Brown didn't play, Ante, and that's kind of a big deal, right? Yeah. But I was impressed with the Pistons.
Yeah, no, I was impressed with them. Obviously, no Luke Cornett as well for the Celtics, which everyone's gonna say, "Oh, Luke Cornett," but
No,
he is
that
a
matters.
part. He's a part of their rotation. I'm not giving them any excuses because obviously I told you that I thought before I even knew Jaylen Brown wasn't playing,
Right.
I thought that the Celtics were gonna lose this game to the Pistons. But I am right there with you. I've been impressed with this Pistons team from the beginning of the season. It was a team that I told you to look out for as a tough out on every single given night.
Yeah.
And they proved that against the champions in any fashion. I don't care if they had 2 superstars or 1 superstar and no superstars. They went out and won a game that a lot of people didn't think they could win, especially on the Celtics going into that game on a win streak. So
I didn't think so.
Respects to them.
Listen, right now, if the playoffs started today, I would get my wish. It would be Knicks Pistons first
There we
round.
go.
And I'm not going to lie today. I'm a gambling man. And it always comes back to gambling. I don't think I would bet against Jalen Brunson in that spot, but I may get involved with a little Pistons, maybe making it a series. You can bet these things how far it goes.
Right.
Maybe I bet a 6, 7.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't say 7, but 6, yeah.
Hey, it depends on the price.
And it depends on how hobbled the Knicks come in, for sure.
right.
You're always going to tell me that. I know that.
All right. Stream the entire Red Sox season with a NESN 360 annual plan. It's available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month, paid annually. And for a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN 360 to sign up today. All right, here on Hold My Banner, we always say we like to give our flowers to basketball legends. So today, Fran Fraschilla pulled up on us, and me and Tay gave him just that. All the flowers in the basketball world. Take a look. All right, Ante, we are joined by basketball royalty. Fran Fraschilla joins the show. Legendary broadcaster, legendary former coach, legendary in every way. Fran, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us, man.
Travis, I'm out of my lane a little bit because I've been so focused on college hoops, but have a lot of friends in New England, have some friends with the Celtics. Good to be with you guys coming off, a tough game, obviously, against the Pistons, but long NBA season. We know how that works.
We know how it works. And listen, you mentioned New England. That's where I want to start. And what I like to call the evolution of Joe Mazzulla, meaning you covered a handful of games when he played at West Virginia. I know you were an assistant coach as well at Providence. So I'm sure the New England area means a lot to you and has a place in your heart. Talk to me about that, and talk to me about Joe Mazzulla, the player.
Yeah, absolutely. My first coaching job, I'm one of the very few people in the state of Rhode Island that coached at both PC and URI, Providence and Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. And for people who don't know around the country, we talk about Alabama, Auburn, Texas OU. There's no more heated rivalry that I've ever been a part of than Providence and URI because of the size of the state, Travis. And I coached at URI right out of college, 1980, believe it or not. It's a long time ago. And then I went back to Providence with Rick Barnes in 1989 until 92 before I became a head coach. So, I know all about seafood, clam chowder, quahogs. And by the way, we all know, Auntie, Rhode Island is a hidden gem when it comes to summer vacations.
Oh, yeah.
It's an unbelievable place. But great memories of being in Rhode Island because of that great rivalry. And, of course, some really good players have come out of Rhode Island through the years. Marvin Barnes, Ernie DiGregorio, among others. And then a little left-handed point guard from Providence by the name of Joe Mazzulla, who was the crazy thing about Joe, as I look back on his college career, is he played for 2 of the best college coaches really maybe in the last 30, 40 years.
Wow. In
Bob Huggins and John Beilein. And those 2 guys were completely opposite from each other. Beilein, the professor, incredible offensive mind. Huggins, the opposite, more defense and offense, toughness, grit. And when I watch Joe and listen to Joe from afar now, I did cover his games when he was at WVU. I think they won an NIT title when I went with Coach Beeline and Joe. But when I think of Joe, obviously it's the toughness and the grit that comes to mind. Not realizing in subsequent years how cerebral, and when I say cerebral, I don't mean just, hey, he's a smart point guard. But from when I watch him from afar, this guy thinks so far ahead of the curve, so far outside the box. When you're coaching NBA guys, you can't trick them. They know. And I've always been impressed with how Joe is constantly staying ahead of the game.
Yeah. You brought up Coach Huggins, obviously, in West Virginia, and I got to go back to that for just a quick second. What of Coach Huggins' philosophy has Joe kind of emulated in his now coaching philosophy with the Celtics? And what's something that the media and the fans aren't really noticing about Joe that you notice from a young age on to now?
Well, it's a great question, Ante. When you coach in the NBA, and I have a son that's in the NBA right now, and I have many, many friends, obviously, in the league, coaching friends. It's a different game. It's a different sport. It's the difference between speaking Spanish and speaking Portuguese. And that's for my New England friends, by the way, my Fall River friends, because there's a lot of Portuguese, obviously, in Boston and down in Rhode Island. But no, honestly, I think he took the best of Coach Huggins. You can't scream and yell at NBA players. Because as you guys know, they'll tune you out.
Right.
But Coach Huggins brought, I think, Joe had the toughness when he got to West Virginia. He wasn't highly recruited. And so I think Coach Huggins brought a certain mental toughness, how to handle adversity. Coach Huggins, when you play for him, he puts you under a lot of adverse conditions in practice, trust me. And so when I watch Joe, I think he's got that toughness. He always had it coming out of Rhode Island, tough background. Coach Huggins brought it out of him. And then I think he still has it now, but he uses it a different way with his team. When I watch him again from afar, he's demanding, he's direct, he's honest. He'll tell players like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and some of the others, these guys are superstars. This is how I want it done. But you do it in a different way, a more artful way, a more cajoling way. When you're dealing with highly intelligent NBA players, you got to do it in a different way. But I think that toughness and that the ability to get across his point, maybe in a different way that Huggs did, but he still got that. And I think that's one of the things that I see from him.
All right, Fran, you have a history here in New England and an affinity for the area. You're a native New Yorker. I'm from that DMV area. I told you I know your buddy Gary Williams. Ante's very humble, Fran, but he's one of the best hoopers to come out of Inglewood, California. As you sort of navigate around the country, what are some of the best, how do you kind of differentiate the hoops areas? All these cities known for basketball, do they have different personality types basketball-wise? As a New York player, is there a certain sort of look to them or feel to them as opposed to an L.A. hooper? What have you kind of learned over the years with that, regional?
Travis, usually those SoCal guys are soft, but wait.
Come on.
Not Inglewood.
Okay.
Not Inglewood. I coached at the University of New Mexico. When I went out there from the East Coast, I had no idea about Southern California recruiting. I'd been out there for AAU tournaments, recruiting Ron Artest from Riverside Church and some of the guys I was able to coach back east. But when I got to New Mexico, one place I went to, Ante would like this. I went to Westchester High School. I came out of LAX, went to In-N-Out Burger right there on Sepulveda. And then made the left turn down to Westchester. And one of the best players I've ever recruited, who I ended up not coaching because I left New Mexico, was a kid named Ashanti Cook out of Westchester High and from Inglewood. And all he did was be a 4-year starter on a Final Four team for John Thompson the third.
Wow.
Remember him, Ante, at all? Remember that name?
Yep.
Wow.
And but to answer your question, Travis, what I've always enjoyed about, first of all, I'm a junkie. I'm a basketball junkie. New York, Detroit, Chicago, D.C., L.A., you put me anywhere, and I can hang. I got to tell you, the DMV, the high school basketball in the WCAC, the Catholic League, is still the best in the country.
That's right.
So, there's a lot of great players everywhere. Now, here's a good story for you.
Okay.
We lived 19 years in Dallas. And my son Matt, who you guys may not know, speaking of New England roots, played at Harvard, coached at Villanova, and he's currently an assistant at Harvard for Tommy Amaker. But when he was in high school, he played on a Team Texas AAU team, and it was the second team. It wasn't with all the superstars. His high school teammate was a 6'8", 175-pound rising senior with no scholarship offers. Matt and he got along great. When we saw him after his senior year of high school, this young man grew to about 6'10", about 190. He was offered a late scholarship to Vanderbilt University because his father played there. He filled out a little bit, and he had a pretty good Vanderbilt career, and his name is Luke Cornett.
Oh, man.
And we remember Luke when he was 6'8", about 175 going into his senior year. And now the rest is history. Luke's one of the best stories you could hear about because we watched Luke when he was a high school guy playing with my son on AAU ball, and it's really funny because when they were on the team, they weren't starters, and the team would get back. The team would get down. Had a bunch of crazy athletic guys taking bad shots. They go, "Okay, Matt, Luke, let's go, get in there." They get the lead. They take him out. They lose the lead. They go, "All right, Matt, Luke, let's go back in there." And but they had a lot of fun because Dallas has great high school basketball, by the way.
Yeah, it does.
They've produced a lot of great players in recent years. Cade Cunningham, so many others coming out of there. But that's my Dallas connection to Boston right now. And by the way, another guy that we were very close to in high school, and he's doing a pretty good job, is a guy named Phil Pressey. We've known Phil since he was a high school junior, playing in Dallas because he moved to Dallas with his dad, Paul, who was a NBA coach who moved around the country. So when Paul left the Celtics to come to Dallas, he hooked up with my two boys. James, who's with the Wizards now. So we got a lot of connections here.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. 6 degrees of separation, and it's basketball. Ante, I know you're going to ask a question, but you're so damn humble. Can you please give Fran your resume? Because, Fran, I guarantee you, he's been coached by people you know or something, Fran.
Where'd you play?
I was going to tell him that. Not a huge fan of UNM. I'm a Fresno State Bulldog and a UTEP Miner.
Oh.
So, not two schools that don't like UNM too much. You know what I mean?
They do not.
But look, it's funny because you brought up Luke Cornett, and I was just thinking the other day about how it's crazy. He came in as a shooting big in the NBA, and now with the Celtics, he doesn't even look at the three ball at all. And it got me thinking about the evolution of basketball. You've seen basketball over many of years. Yep. What do you think about the game? What has changed so much in the college game and even in the NBA game since the time you started out with your basketball journey until now?
Let me tell you a great story about this, Ante. This is great. By the way, one quick thing about UTEP. My first time at New Mexico driving over to play UTEP, we were staying at that Marriott in El Paso, right?
Yeah.
And we're driving over. I'm an East Coast guy. My whole coaching staff is East Coast. And our trainer at UNM had been at UTEP for many years. And so as we're going over to the arena, I look over and I said, "Dave, is that the poor part of El Paso?" And he said, "Coach, that's Mexico." I was like,
wow.
Oh my God. Okay. I mean, and you know what I'm saying? Not to denigrate Juarez, but that, I was looking over there going, man, that's a tough looking place. I've been in Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, Houston, and that was tough. And so that was my first, eye opener to El Paso. But you raised a great question about the way the game has changed. And I'm going to tell you a little story because I'm old enough to be able to tell you this. In the 60s and 70s, coaches like Hubie Brown, Dr. Jack Ramsey, Chuck Daly, the great Dean Smith from North Carolina, in the summertime, they would be invited around the world to do coaching clinics in places like Italy, Spain, Morocco, all over the world. They taught the game to the world back in the 60s and 70s. These were like vacation junkets. Hey, come over to Rome. You'll speak to the Italian Coaches Federation, and we'll set you up for a week with your wife. You'll have a great vacation. Well, in doing these clinics, the world started to learn about basketball. Then in 1992, as you guys have heard of the Dream Team, obviously.
Of course.
We spread the gospel of basketball around the world with Magic and Michael and Larry Bird, Chuck Barkley. And during that time, young players like Dirk, Paul Gasol, and so many others got hooked on the game. You guys now know 25% of the league almost is born outside the United States.
Wow.
We taught the game to the world. They're now teaching it back to us.
Yep.
Because now we see the shooting bigs. We see spread pick and roll. We see all these different things that we taught the world, and now they're teaching it back to us, maybe even in a better way.
Yeah.
So our high school and college coaches are definitely going to school on watching these international players and coaches have an effect on the NBA game.
Fran, we see you as such a legendary broadcaster, as we said off the top with the intro. You're such a great ambassador of basketball, but I want to speak to the competitor of you now, because looking at your coaching record, my man, you have a winning record. You have several NCAA appearances. Is there any part of you right now in your great life where you just think, man, I really miss coaching? Do you miss it, Fran?
Travis, it's a great question. I want to tell you, I made a career decision at 43.
Yeah.
I was coaching at New Mexico, as Ante knows, and he's been there, and I was in witness protection, okay? My mom in Brooklyn was like, do I need a passport to come see you? I said, no, Mom, it's New Mexico, okay? And but when I left New Mexico, I retired because of illness at 43. The fans got sick of me, okay? So I thought I would do a couple years of TV, and a guy you know well who's now joined Nesson, Dan Steer, was my first boss.
Wow.
And you're gonna love Dan, because he taught me a lot about broadcasting. But I said to my wife, let's move to Dallas, where you're from, because we were on the East Coast forever, St. John's, Manhattan, Providence, Ohio State. And I said, the boys were little, they were 9 and 6. I said, let's go to Dallas, see your family. I'll do a couple years of TV, and then I'll go back to coaching, probably on the East Coast.
Right.
Because everybody knew me back East. 8 postseasons in 9 years. I was a young guy, and quite frankly, I caught the broadcasting bug in this regard. Dan Steers, who I mentioned to you, he gave me the opportunity to work at ESPN, and every time I thought about going back to coaching, I thought about my lifestyle, raising my kids. I thought about having 8 months off, essentially. Yeah. Although I keep very busy with basketball throughout the year, NBA draft and USA basketball. I just had a lifestyle decision, and every time I got offered a coaching job, Travis, I said, you know what? I got a good life. Yeah. Now, do I miss it? Do I miss teaching? I do, but I teach every single night I'm on the air.
Yes, you do.
I'm not close to UB Brown. I'm not. We all learn from the great UB Brown. But I love explaining the game in a way that people go, wow, I never thought of it that way. And so when you follow me on Twitter, I put a great video out today on a great lottery pick point guard from BYU, a Russian kid who's a pick and roll savant. I've stayed close to the game. And I'll put it this way, Travis, to answer your question in a final way. From the time I was 13, growing up in Brooklyn on the playgrounds, till now at 66, there's not been a single day that I haven't been involved with basketball. Talking to coaches, watching film, doing games, traveling the world in the summer to do clinics. So I miss the teaching day to day, but I teach every single day when I'm on the air.
Yeah. When did you realize that transition was for you? Like, going into broadcasting can be scary, especially coming from coaching. When did you know, hey, broadcasting is my thing?
Ante, it's a great question. For the first 7 years that I was in broadcasting, I would get 2 or 3 calls every spring from athletic directors. And they'd say, hey, are you interested? And I would talk to teams. I interview with certain schools. And then at the end of the day, I had to make a decision. Do I want that lifestyle, 12 months of raising somebody else's kid, or make a little less money, and in some cases a lot less money, but a good living in broadcasting, and spend 8 months of the year with my kids, who at that time were learning how to be good high school players, and they both played in college. James played at Oklahoma with Buddy Hield, and Matt, as I mentioned, played at Harvard. And when I look back on my friendships with guys like Bill Self, Tom Izzo, Shaka Smart, I know how good a coach I was. but I checked my ego at the door and said, this is better lifestyle for me and my family.
Yeah.
So after about 6 or 7 years, Ante, the calls dried up, but my career in broadcasting kept taking off. And so I have no regrets at all. On occasion, I'll go to practice and say, man, I feel like getting out there and changing this drill up, We can do this. We can do this drill better here. And I also, and I'll tell you the other thing that you'll like, I've become a mentor to young coaches and young broadcasters.
Yeah.
So now I pay it forward, When I'll tell you a great Mike Breen story. When there was the NBA strike in 2011, Mike Breen, a friend of mine, a great broadcaster from ESPN, he did a handful of college games. And you know how Mike is known for bang, at the end of a game.
Yep.
So we're doing a game. I'll never forget it. It's Georgetown at Alabama. JT3 was coaching Georgetown. They hit a shot at the buzzer. Mike goes bang. He screams. I scream. Right. The game ends. And we're friends now. He takes the headset off and he says, hey, I let you talk for 39 and a half minutes. The final 10 seconds is my show. And I couldn't get mad. He was 100% right.
Yep.
So I learned from that. And you'll hear some broadcasts where two guys are yelling at once.
Yeah.
Mike Breen taught me, it's the play-by-play guy's job. So now when I work with a young play-by-play guy, they're nervous. Oh, I'm working with Fran Fraschilla, And I'll tell them when we go to lunch, hey, listen, in the final 2 minutes of a game, when there's a timeout, all you got to do is say to me, all right, coach, what's Joe Mazzulla saying in the huddle? And I'll say, all right, here's the opportunity here. There's 36 seconds, so be ready for the 2-for-1 here, okay? And they've got a timeout left, so they can advance it on a miss.
Yeah.
And so, but I also tell them, you set me up for the timeout huddles, and the final 15 seconds is your show. I'm laying out and saying nothing. And now they're looking at me like, hey, this guy's trying to make me look good. So I try to become a mentor to young broadcasters as well as young coaches because I still get those calls. What do we do here?
Yeah. Well, you're doing it right now, Fran. You don't even realize it because we spend this whole show, Ante and I, he's yelling at me. So the key now, I understand, is just lay out and let the young fella yell at me. I get it, Fran. All right.
No, that's not. Listen, that's for the game. What you guys are doing, you gotta have a little Stephen A. in you now.
That's right. That's
and
right.
we need a little controversy on a talk show now.
Yeah,
that's right.
There's got to be some back and forth disagreement here. You don't know what you're talking about, man. we should have trapped Cade Cunningham on those pick and rolls last night, man. He was picking us apart.
Absolutely.
So no, it's a different animal for the talk show than if I'm doing a game. So you got to know everything.
That's right.
And by the way, when I do radio, and I've done some radio, the analyst does very little talking because on TV the fan can see what's going on.
Right.
But on radio, you need Mike Gorman. I know Mike did TV for a long time, my good friend. But when you're doing radio as an analyst, you don't say anything unless there's a dead ball.
That's right.
Because on radio, Johnny Most, the great Johnny Most, he's describing the picture of the game for some truck driver driving from Boston to Nashua. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
On a random Tuesday night. You like all these local references? Come on now.
Absolutely. I'm catching them all, Fran. You're throwing them out. I'm catching them all. Want the latest on the Patriots and the NFL? We'll tell you what Mike Vrabel and the Pats should do with the 4th pick in the NFL draft on Nesson's football podcast, Foxborough Rush. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. I do want to ask you this. As someone who has watched the game change and evolve as much as you have, and you've talked a little bit about it, I'm curious your thoughts when you saw this new world order in college sports now with the NIL, with the transfer portal. There's got to be some of you that's like, I'm glad I'm not coaching dealing with this, or do you think you would have been in an advantage? What do you make of all this stuff?
Every college coach who's been doing this longer than 5 years is making adjustments. And it's crazy. And right now, there's no guardrails. You've heard that cliche, right? No guardrails. It's crazy. If the NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL, pro soccer, if they have salary caps, you got to have a salary cap here. We got to get this under control. I'll tell you what's happening. Kids are staying in college and they all have agents, and the portal is wide open. It's ultimate free agency, so it's a little crazy right now. There's unintended consequences, both good and bad, with this NIL stuff. It's really hard to have continuity. It's it's hard for kids to overcome adversity anymore, because in the old days, I'll tell you a story. When you guys may know the name Jermaine Samuels, okay? Mm-hmm. Jermaine played at the River School, played at Villanova. He's in the G League now. He's had a couple call-ups. But Jermaine did not play at Villanova as a freshman. Mm-hmm. And I would call my son Matt and say, Jermaine transferring? And he'd say, no, Dad, he gets it. He doesn't know the system yet. When he gets it, he'll play. Well, from his sophomore year to his senior year, he was a great Big East player. He's been with the Pacers. I think he's with the Rockets now. Mm-hmm. But he waited his turn. Mm-hmm. You don't see that as much now with kids sitting, transferring, because the portal's wide open.
Right.
Now, if not all of them, but if kids hit adversity, they're out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in some cases, it's a good move for them, maybe to go down a level. But in other cases, man, adversity is what makes you a great player in time.
Right.
And so some of that is missing. Getting some money in your pocket is good. In some cases, it's great. Mm-hmm. In some cases, it's life-changing money, especially if you're not going to be an NBA player. But we're navigating, to your point, Travis, a whole new world. It's got to be sorted out and brought a little bit under control so that we have the kind of rules and regulations at a smaller level that the NBA has.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to talk about with college basketball that seems crazy to me, and I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it too much, is this new JUCO rule, allowing the guys come out of junior college and have 4 years of eligibility. Are we seeing the end, or at least close to the end, of the true freshman in college basketball, unless you're a Cooper Flagg or you're an AJ DeBenza?
Yeah. Andre, here's what I would say, Ante. I put it this way. If you sued the NCAA right now for eligibility, you could probably get it. You could probably beat the NCAA and be playing, right now, because there's no rules.
Let's get him back.
Yeah, maybe he might see the NIL thing and want to get back to UTEP and Fresno, or maybe even Boston College.
Yeah,
but it's crazy. So. What did you ask me? I forget, because you told me you said JUCO, and I thought, oh yeah, you get extra years now.
Are we seeing the end of the college freshman just because of the new JUCO rule that allows? I know Rick Pitino was talking about he's not really recruiting freshmen anymore. So why would you, when you could get a 20-year-old with 4 years of eligibility versus an 18-year-old who's all worried about the money and NIL and all this other stuff and doesn't understand basketball as a full concept? You got a guy who comes in 2 years already done in the college system, and now he has 4 years of the eligibility just like a freshman would.
It's a great point, but I'll take it even a step further. You laid it out perfectly. But now, if you have a chance to get a one-and-done high school guy, okay, you grab him. Okay, we get that. But if you're top 50, top 75, top 100, top 150, and you go to a place where they're bringing in, forget the JUCO guys, just one-year transfers.
Right.
Yeah.
Hunter Dickinson going from Michigan to Kansas now, where he's played 2 now.
Right.
Because he got the 5th year. And that guy probably made over 2 years close to $2 million.
Woo.
So yeah. So the point is, if you're Bill Self, or you're most other coaches, Shaka Smart and Kelvin Sampson and some others are doing it with the old way, old school, and they're still taking care of their guys. But if I'm Bill Self and I can get a top 75 high school guy who may or may not be ready, and I can get an All-American like Hunter Dickinson for 2 years, that's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. That's the problem right now for these high school kids who are not the top 25, is that they almost have to go down a level, maybe go to the A10, go to a roadie, put up 18 points a game as a freshman, and then transfer up. It's almost like European basketball.
Right.
And if you go to Providence, for example, using them locally, hot shot, top 75 guy, and you're not playing that much as a freshman or a sophomore, maybe then you transfer over to BU, get a little less NIL money, but you're going to play 30 minutes a game. These are all the complications and unintended consequences of NIL and the freewheeling transfer portal. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the unknown thing here is agents. Everybody's got agents now.
Right.
You know, we used to call illegal, guys cheating, NIL,
Yeah.
now means now it's legal. So it's crazy out there.
Yeah.
And the long-winded way of answering your question about whether I want to be coaching now, if I did, I'd be adjusting. I wouldn't be yelling at guys anymore.
Yeah.
Because if I yelled at them, they'd call their mom and dad and the AAU guy and go, get me out of here. This guy's crazy.
Yeah.
I ain't playing for Fraschilla. I'll play for Sampson or Izzo, but this guy's crazy. So there's so many crazy things going on with this.
Well, Fran, we love that we can just see you're crazy now broadcasting. You made the right choice, my friend. We love that. Look. Passionate. Speaking of which, you have seen Cooper Flagg up close and personal. He's from the area. I mean, what do you think of the kid? Do you think a lot of the debate now is, will his skills translate to the NBA? I think he's going to be just fine. What do you see when you watch him? What do you make of him, the player?
Before you answer this,
here we
I
go.
want to give you some context. Me and Travis have been arguing about the word generational.
Yes.
It's been thrown out a lot lately. And, so I want to know, is Cooper Flagg a generational talent?
Yes.
That's a good question. Who's on which side?
I think so let's define generational first, Fran, quickly.
Yeah.
Ante suggests that he thinks Cooper Flagg will be the second best player on a potential championship team. He does not believe you can build a championship team with Cooper Flagg. I disagree. I said there are levels to generational. Can I get to a title quicker building around Wemby? Sure. But I still think Cooper Flagg can be my guy who I build around and I can win a title. That's how I define generational. What do you make of it?
Let me tell you something, guys. This is the exact argument teams are going to have the next 4 months. Mm-hmm. Seriously. My son's with the Wizards, as I mentioned, James, and let's face it, the Wizards, the Hornets, some other teams are trying to get the top pick, right?
Right.
And now even the Spurs are in the picture because they just shut Wemby down, right?
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. But it's a really good question that's going to be discussed ad nauseum in these draft rooms. I'm a huge fan of him. I saw him when he was 15 playing for USA Basketball. I don't know if he's generational. I'm not sure. I definitely think he's the number one pick. I've seen Ace Bailey, love him. Mm-hmm. I've seen Dylan Harper, love him. I see VJ Edgecombe a lot. His floor is Oladipo at worst, Dwayne Wade at best. Okay, but remember, D Wade went 5th.
Yeah.
Okay, he went 5th in the draft. He ended up a Hall of Famer. So, could VJ Edgecombe be better than Cooper Flagg at some point? Yes. Would I take Cooper Flagg? I would, and I would for this reason. At worst, he's going to be the second best player on a high-level playoff team.
Okay.
I also think he's a guy on a bad team you can actually build around him. Mm-hmm. And he'll be the best player, but you got to have some scoring around him because he does things that help you win. Unlike a Ace Bailey, who's a young Kevin Durant, and I saw Kevin a lot his freshman year because I covered the Big 12, and I used to work for Rick Barnes at Providence, so I knew everything about KD. I think that I would still take Cooper Flagg because he can rebound, he can defend, he's athletic, he's showing he's going to be a very good shooter despite the slow start.
Yep.
He can score around the basket, he's going to be in the mid-range. He does so many things that help you win that I would not pass on him.
Okay.
Will he beat KD or LeBron? I don't know, but I think he's going to be an all-star at worst.
Yeah.
And I do think you could build around him. So I think I'm kind of hedging a little.
Yeah.
But I hope you get what I'm saying.
No, you're not hedging at all. You're saying I'm right, Fran.
No.
Thanks. Go on, Ante.
You're right there in my range. I think, second best player on the championship team. I think floor like how we look at like a Gordon Hayward or something like that when he was healthy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at.
I think you're both right. I think you're both right.
There we go. Last thing that we're going to ask you, Fran, look, I got to talk about the influence of the international games. Spain pick and roll has taken over the league. And if for the people who are listening or are watching that don't know what spade and pick and roll is when you set the back pick for the big, and you get the roll and you get the pop out for a three, whatever, right? And so I want to know, are we going to see more of this international game kind of bleeding into the NBA? And is there something that you see now in the international game? Because I know you're a real international fan, international hoop head, that you could see possibly coming to the league in a couple years.
I'll tell you, this is a great question, and I answered it a little bit earlier. Let me tell you something. In the 1990s, I was running Spain pick and roll at Manhattan College. Mm-hmm. We didn't call it that. We just called it ball screen pick to picker.
Yep.
Okay?
Simple.
And here's my moral of the story. Very little in basketball has been invented. Going back to Dr. Naismith. Stuff that the dribble weave was used in the 20s. If you go back and watch the Harlem Renaissance, man, they were dribble weaving back in the 20s, okay?
Right.
And then somebody broke free and drove to the basket. You go, oh, wow. Then you look back on it, you go, man, that guy looks like Chris Paul. That's like 100 years ago. But everything in basketball cycles. Now, we're international. And by the way, the reason we call it Spain pick and roll is because Sergio Scariolo, who coached with the Raptors for a while, was an assistant coach on their championship team, and was a Spanish national team coach. He repopularized it in FIBA basketball.
Yeah.
But the things that we taught the Europeans, particularly internationally, and the thing they're teaching back to us, all that's happening is that it's being recycled back. Now, where I do think the international guys have had an incredible impact on the NBA, for example, is the way we used to play the game. I grew up with the Knicks in the 70s, team ball, hit the open man. The great Celtics teams were the same way, team ball. Then we got away from it a little bit with Allen Iverson and ISO ball. Mm-hmm. All good. Now we got mix of it now in the NBA. Find a mismatch, attack the mismatch. But the international guys that come to the league, they were taught team ball by their coaches who were taught by Americans.
Yeah.
So when they come over to a team, and the reason international guys are so popular with their teammates is because they, quote, play the game the right way. That influence has had a big influence on NBA basketball over the last 15 years. And more teams than not. You look at the Nuggets, right? You look at the Spurs with the Ginobili in that group.
Yep.
And even the Celtics to an extent, the way they stretch the floor.
100%.
Everybody is playing European basketball, but those guys learned it from us. So it's full cycle. Thank you, B. Brown and Dr. Jack Ramsey for the way the game has been influenced right now. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, man, we love it, Fran. You've just been so gracious with your time. We really appreciate you. We'd love to have you back, let's say after the draft, and we'll talk about some of the best fits, where players went. By the way, it should be noted here, Fran, just so you know, if you can hook something up, Ante and I are going to the Harvard basketball game this weekend against Yale. Whoa. So we need to link up with your son so we can introduce ourselves, man. We're Matt, all in your family here, Fran.
I'll tell Matt to look for you. They got to beat Brown Friday night. Yale's a tall order. If you follow Harvard, they've lost 3 players to NIL, 2 to Stanford, and then, of course, Malik Mack. And I know, listen, I'm going to just say this to you guys. We love Malik, man. And
he's great.
He was so well-known nationally. Yeah. And like Matt always tells people, because he stays in close touch with Malik, Malik turned pro. He had to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Malik's not having the year at Georgetown. They lost to UConn last night. He had 7 points. It breaks my heart because you got to take the money, I think.
Yeah.
What I wish Malik would have understood is the NIL at Harvard is a 60-year NIL.
Yeah.
And every NBA team in the league last year was at Harvard watching them. But here's the deal. They got a young team, and 3 of their top 7 are freshmen. They're the youngest team in the league. They'll have a tall order on Saturday night. Yeah. That Poulakaitis kid from Yale, keep an eye on him. He could be an NBA player.
Cool.
But Harvard, I love Middlesex Magic. I told Matt, you got to get some more Middlesex kids like Austin Hunt, who's a good freshman. And he gets it. But say hi to Matt. And by the way, have me on the draft coverage before the draft, a week before.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about who's going where.
Oh,
yeah. Hey, and I quickly got to say, you said that SoCal kids are soft, but Robert Hinton looks good, okay? Yeah. All right?
He's
Robert
a good player,
looks good.
No.
He's a good player.
Rob can play. No, Rob's not soft. I was joking anyway. And by the way, Ante, hey, listen, Inglewood is just like going to Brownsville or Harlem, okay?
Yep.
As far as ball is concerned.
Yep.
If you come out of Inglewood and you're a player, much respect.
Much
appreciate
respect.
you, Fran.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, man. We appreciate it. We'll have you soon for the draft. Thank you, Fran.
You got it, Trav. Great catching up with you guys.
Want to hear about Boston sports? Check out Nesson's Daily Sports Podcast. Boston has entered the chat. You too can enter the conversation by tweeting at us using the hashtag NessonChat or email the chat at Nesson.com. Boston has entered the chat is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. Tay, that was an excellent interview with Fran, and I can't wait to have him back on, man.
Yeah, me too, bro. Look, I want to say that we've had a lot of great people doing a lot of great stuff. Shout out to Diana Taurasi for retiring. She's going to go down as a basketball Hall of Famer. And also I want to give a quick shout out to Greg Popovich. Hope you find good health, man, and we want to see you coaching soon, man.
Well said, brother. For Ante Campbell and for Travis Thomas, we thank you for holding our banner. Hold it with us again next time. Peace.
Deuces.